with the US through Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner. He's now denied that any talks have taken place. Joining me from Iran with his verdict is Professor Mohammad Marandi from Tehran University. Professor Marandi, thank you for coming back on Uncensored. Donald Trump posted this morning. I'm pleased to report that the United States of America and the country of Iran have had over the last 2 days very good and productive conversations regarding a complete and total resolution of our hostilities in the Middle East. Based on the tenor and tone of these in-depth, detailed and constructive conversations, which will continue throughout the week, I've instructed the Department of War to postpone any and all military strikes against Iranian power plants and energy infrastructure for a 5-day period, subject to the success of the ongoing meetings and discussions. Donald J. Trump. What is your response to that? Because all the official responses have been that there have been no discussions whatsoever. Is that your understanding?
Yes, there have not been any talks. The reason it is believed here that Trump made this statement was because he was worried about the markets. And he made this statement, I think, an hour before the markets opened on Monday. And of course, these 5 days would end after the markets close on Friday. I think he's also deeply concerned about the fact that Iran said that it will retaliate with great force if these crimes against humanity are carried out, because obviously targeting vital infrastructure that ordinary people use is a crime against humanity. But of course, as usual, there's no outcry in the West, because for the West, we live in the jungle.
Well, I mean, my response to that would be that I think that there's always been an understood red line that you don't go after each other's energy plants. And that line was crossed. I think it was crossed by Israel attacking one of the Iranian power plants. Iran responded in kind, attacking a refinery in Qatar and threatening to do more of that. And we now get to a place where Donald Trump threatened to blow up huge amounts of the Iranian power plants and now appears to have backed down from that, claiming to have had discussions. So this red line is an important one, isn't it? Because it's in nobody's interest in this conflict that Iranians' power plants get destroyed and they respond by taking out all of the neighboring Gulf states' power plants. That would be energy Armageddon.
So, Pierce, do you condemn Donald Trump for threatening to take out Iran's critical infrastructure, its vital infrastructure that is targeting 92 million Iranians?
Yes.
Good. We finally agree on something.
I didn't agree with what Israel did in attacking the refinery. I wouldn't agree if America decided to attack more of the power plants. I think in particular you have an issue with the Gulf states, with the desalination plants, both in Iran, but also obviously in all the Gulf states, its neighboring states there, where having spent a lot of time in the Middle East, I know that if you took out the desalination plants, then the ability of the populations of these Gulf states to drink water would very rapidly disappear. And you would potentially have millions of people unable to get to access water, which would be devastating. That's why it's always been a red line. But many red lines have been ripped up, it seems to me, in this war so far. How do you think this ends?
Well, all the red lines were, of course, crossed by the United States. An unprovoked war, murdering 168 little girls on day one in the first strike, murdering the leader, denying that they carried out the strike against the girls, pretending that it was the Iranians. In other words, pretending it was the victims. But of course, this is the 47-year-old history of Iran in the United States. The United States carries out aggression, and it always blames the victim, and the victim is somehow the problem. But I think the war will end in a strategic defeat for Trump. The Iranians are not going to let go until the facts on the ground change and Iran feels assured that this will never happen again. They're going to continue, because we already went through this once. We were negotiating, and Trump was secretly conspiring to attack Iran with Netanyahu 8-9 months ago. Then again, this time around, as we were negotiating, he did the same thing. So we're not going to allow him to walk away, rearm himself, prepare himself, and then launch another attack 6 months from now, a year from now, or 2 years from now.
Okay, but the argument, of course, would come back exactly the same to Iran. And many people will laugh, wryly at your description of Iran as any kind of victim, given its activities in supporting terrorist organizations all over the Middle East for decades, given the repression of its own people and the 47 years this regime has been intact. And you and I have debated that ad infinitum. You're never going to give an inch about any of it. I'm not going to waste more time trying to get you to do now. But in relation to a settlement, the Americans and the Israelis will want exactly the same from Iran. They will say the whole point of why they waged this attack. And look, I don't know what they know, but they say that there was legitimate evidence that Iran had been very rapidly rebuilding its nuclear capability, enriching the uranium to a point where it could create a nuclear bomb, and they could not allow that to happen. And that was against undertakings that Iran had given the international community. So they want the same thing from you that you have just asked for from them. So I ask simply, how does it get resolved?
No, there's no moral equivalence between an evil empire and its victims. There never was moral equivalence. Iran does not have terrorist organizations in the region. Hezbollah, which you call a terrorist organization, was created as a result of the Israeli regime's invasion of Lebanon and the occupation of the capital of the country. It was born to expel this regime that had occupied its country. And in Palestine, all of the resistance organizations were created, every single one were created as a result of occupation, ethnic cleansing, something that you know quite well, but you want to see otherwise. Or the resistance in Iraq or Afghanistan. You deny the people of these countries agency when a foreign power controls their fate, and then you want to blame Iran for everything that happens. Instead of invading countries and occupying countries and murdering people, the empire should just go home and have normal relations with each country, and then we wouldn't have this sort of conflict.
So do you concede? Do you concede quite happily then that the Iranian regime has supported, both with money and with arms, Hezbollah, the Houthis, and Hamas? Are you proud of that?
Yes, why not? They are liberation organizations. Without Hezbollah, the US regime, the Israeli regime, would still be occupying Lebanon. They would still be controlling Lebanon. The same is true in Palestine. By now, they would have ethnically cleansed the entire land of Palestine. Right now, as we speak, you know this as well as I, they are carrying out ethnic cleansing in the West Bank. And the West is silent. Not a single Western embassy protests. Why? Because all of the West believes unofficially the same thing that the US ambassador does in occupied Palestine. What does he believe? He believes that the Israeli regime has the most moral army in the world, like in Gaza with the genocide, and that if it takes over the entire region, that's fine. This is the unofficial policy of the United States and its European partners. The official policy is something else. So without a doubt, it is the Palestinians who are the victims. It is the Lebanese who are the victims. It is the Yemenis who are victims. And it is the Iraqis who've been victims. And now it's the Iranians who are victims.
Okay.
Your countries are all, you want to portray them as victims, but they go and kidnap presidents in Latin America. They strangle people in Cuba. They destroy Libya and allow slave markets to emerge. And somehow you're always this innocent bystander, and we are the bad guys.
Well, just to be clear, I've never used the word victim about either the United States or Israel. I don't believe them to be victims. But I understand their arguments for why they do what they do. I don't always agree with them, but I understand their arguments in the same way I listen to your arguments. My question for you, you asked me to condemn the notion of America attacking big power plants in Iran, and I happily did that. I think it would be a terrible mistake because I think Iran would immediately do the same thing to all the neighboring Gulf states, and it would be, as I said, energy Armageddon. Would you condemn the terror attacks committed by 3,000 Hamas terrorists on October the 7th, for example, in return?
We went through that the first time I was on your show, and I said I would condemn them if I were to condemn the French resistance against the Nazis.
Okay, so you don't condemn it, just to be clear. You're equivocating, but you don't condemn it.
No.
Okay, so look, viewers can make their own minds up. If you can't condemn 3,000 people coming over a border and attacking innocent people who are at a music festival or in their kibbutz or wherever it may be, killing elderly people, young people, kidnapping a baby, kidnapping Holocaust survivors, if you can't find it in yourself to condemn the actions that day by Hamas, people will judge you accordingly. You can be as judgmental as you want against the United States and Israel, and some of the points you make I may agree with. But whereas I'm happy to condemn what would be a grotesque miscalculation if the Americans did attack your power plants, you can't even condemn the murder of 1,200 people and the kidnapping of another 250. And that says a lot about you, Professor Morandi.
No, actually, I think it says a lot about you because you know better than to say this, but you have to say this. That's how you keep your job.
Why? Who do you think I'm answerable to?
Oh, well, resistance.
Who?
Again,
I own my own business. I own my own channel. I'm answerable to nobody. Who am I answerable to?
The people who keep your show on air.
Who?
So,
well, hang on, who?
The people who keep your show on air.
Who do you think keeps me on air?
Oh, well, you know much better.
Well, spit it out. Say, give me a name.
You don't want me to respond to you. The people that own the people that own the media industry.
Who are you talking about? Who do you think puts me on air?
You know quite well who
Give me
they
a
are.
name.
It is. You don't want me to answer your question.
No, I do. Give me a name. Please give me a name.
You're afraid of my answers.
Give me a name.
Look, Piers. The first time you invited me, you allowed me to talk.
One name of somebody who controls me or tells me what to put on air.
For you. And ever since then, you prevent me from speaking.
Just give me a name.
Because whenever I speak, you have no answer.
Give me a name.
Go and look it up. If you don't know who owns the media outlet that your company works and provides services for, go and look it up.
Sorry, you don't seem to understand what my company is. My company is owned by me.
Yes. In any case, your company that is owned by you uses this format, this platform to speak to me and prevent me from speaking, and you talk over me.
When have I prevented you from speaking? I've had you on multiple times in the last few years.
You never let me talk.
I never prevent you from speaking. So you say that I'm under control by people, but you won't name them. Again, viewers can make their own calculations.
Look it up.
Give me a name.
Look them up. I'll send it to you after the show. Look it up and I'll give you the name of the people who you work with.
We're uncensored.
I'll look it up after the show and give you the name.
If you think I'm being censored, give me a name.
Why do you invite me if you're afraid of me talking?
Because you are a spokesman for the Iranian regime in Tehran, and therefore your opinions in the middle of a war in Iran against America and Israel are pertinent and relevant.
You're talking nonsense because I'm not a spokesman for anyone, but this is how you like to discredit me. I'm an academic and I teach at the University of Tehran, and I don't get paid for doing this work. I risk my life. Did you know that a verified account on Twitter that has paid partnership is gathering money, $1 million in order to kidnap me?
I saw that. I thought it was disgusting.
Yes. Do you condemn?
I condemn it. Yeah.
Do you condemn the owner of Twitter,
Elon Musk?
Do you
mean Elon Musk? I think Elon Musk should not allow that to be done on his platform. I saw it. I think it's terrible. Yes.
You condemn it.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, so I find it easy. I find it easy to condemn terrible things. You don't.
But people like you who dishonestly say I'm a spokesperson, even though if I were a spokesman, that would not legitimize what they do. Right. But by creating this aura that is dishonest, you create an environment where they can get away with these crimes.
Right. Well, just to
And
be
now
clear,
my entire
once
family,
again,
now all of my loved ones,
once again,
all of my
if
loved
I may
ones
finish
are
my
deeply
point,
afraid
you asked
because
me,
of the things that you say
Yeah.
and the actions that they take.
fine. You've asked
in
me
any
several
in any
times.
case,
You've
let me
asked
get
me.
to Gaza. Just let me
If I
answer
may
very
finish,
briefly.
you've asked me several
me get-
times if I condemn various things, and I have immediately
Okay, now
condemned them.
let me
and I've
respond
immediately
to the
condemned
Gaza
them.
issue.
I asked you to condemn
Okay, you
one
condemned
thing,
it.
and it was the Hamas attacks of October
Okay,
the 7th.
let me respond to
and
that.
you chose not
Let me
to
respond.
and likened them to the French resistance. And people,
Yes,
like I
let me
say,
respond to that.
as they do with all our interviews, they will judge
Why don't you let me
according
talk?
to what you say.
You don't want me to answer the question.
You don't answer.
I'll answer. Hamas is a resistance organization.
Okay, you
The
said that
people
before.
in listen for a moment. The people who live in Gaza come from Palestine. They are refugees that were pushed
Right,
into
I asked you if you
Gaza.
condemned it, and you said no. End.
Any
You answered the question.
Listen.
I've got to leave it there, Professor
listen,
Morandi.
Listen.
You chose not to condemn it, and you chose not to tell me who you think controls my show. Viewers can make their own minds up about your answers, but you cannot say I don't give you a platform, because I regularly do,
you don't give
and
me
we
a
don't
platform.
censor anything you
this is a
say.
joke.
But I condemn things when I think they're wrong. You don't.
No, you haven't let me speak.
You don't,
let
because
me speak.
you don't think they're wrong.
Your
you think
viewers
what
know what you
Hamas
do.
did
By the way,
was perfectly
the head
justified.
of Press TV,
I've got to leave it there.
The head of Press TV
I've got to leave it there.
has said that you can have a live debate with me
Let's
in
do it.
Iran
Let's do
on
it.
Press TV.
Let's
a
do it.
live debate
Let's do it.
whenever you like. So come to Iran.
No,
we'll
I'm not
go
coming
to the studio.
Iran.
You can visit
come
the
to
country
London.
and see how awful
You
it
come
is.
to London and sit in this studio, and we'll do it. Done. Deal.
I've been
Professor
to
Morandi,
London.
I'm going to leave it there.
I've been to London.
I'll leave it there
I've
for
been
now.
to London. You've
but
never been to Iran.
I
You talk
appreciate
about
you.
Iran, but
I
you've never
appreciate
seen
you
it.
coming on Uncensored. If you want to come and have the balls to fly over here and sit right
You are
here opposite
cowardly,
me,
Pierce.
you do it,
You're
and we'll
afraid.
air it. Uncensored.
Donald Trump posted that America and Iran had been having very good and productive conversations toward a complete resolution of hostilities. Iran said there were no conversations. No talks, none, zero. And here is what Morandi identified that every financial journalist in the world should be screaming about right now. Trump posted that announcement approximately 1 hour before the American markets opened on Monday morning. The 5-day pause, he announced, the period during which he claimed talks were ongoing and strikes on power plants would be postponed, ended right after the markets closed on Friday. Think about what that means. The President of the United States manufactured a fake diplomatic breakthrough, a fictional peace process that the other party flatly denied ever happened, timed precisely to the opening and closing bell of the American stock market. That is not diplomacy. That is market manipulation using the lives of 92 million Iranian people and the fear of American families worried about escalating energy prices as the instrument. If any other person in America did what Trump did, made a public statement specifically timed to move financial markets that they knew to be false, they would be facing securities fraud charges. The President of the United States did it on a global platform, and the financial media covered the market rally without asking why Iran was simultaneously denying every word of his announcement. That is the state of American financial journalism in 2026. Now let us talk about the energy Armageddon red line. Because Piers Morgan actually got something right in this interview, and it deserves acknowledgement. He correctly identified that attacking power plants and desalination infrastructure crosses a threshold that nobody recovers from cleanly. The Gulf states do not have natural water sources. Their entire population's access to drinking water runs through desalination plants. If those plants go offline, whether through Iranian retaliation for American strikes on Iranian power infrastructure or through any other escalation, you are looking at millions of people losing access to water within days, not weeks, days. This is not a hypothetical. This is basic geography and engineering applied to a conflict zone. And Trump threatened to blow up Iranian power plants. He said it publicly. He put it in writing. He made it an explicit threat against civilian infrastructure that 92 million people depend on for electricity, for hospitals, for water treatment, for food refrigeration, for every basic function of modern civilized life. Morandi called that a crime against humanity, and under the Rome Statute and the Geneva Conventions, he is correct. Deliberately targeting civilian infrastructure as a method of warfare is a war crime, full stop. And when Piers asked Trump to condemn it, he did. To his credit, he said yes, he would condemn striking Iran's power plants. He said he would not agree with it. But here's the question that never got asked. If Piers Morgan sitting in a London studio knows that striking Iranian power plants would be a grotesque miscalculation that would trigger energy Armageddon across the Gulf, why did the people around Donald Trump not stop him from threatening it publicly? Where was the Secretary of State? Where was the National Security Advisor? Where were the adults in the room when the President of the United States was threatening to commit what would be a clear war crime against civilian infrastructure in a way that would trigger immediate retaliation against every neighboring Gulf state's desalination and energy systems? The answer is there were no adults in the room. There have not been adults in the room for this entire war. And 92 million Iranians and the entire global economy are living with the consequences of that absence. The condemnation trap deserves its own full analysis, because this is the most consistent and most intellectually dishonest technique deployed against anyone who speaks on behalf of Palestinian or Iranian people in Western media, and it needs to be permanently dismantled. The trap works like this. The host asks a morally loaded question. Do you condemn Hamas? Do you condemn October 7th? Do you condemn this specific act of violence? If the guest says yes without qualification, the host uses that condemnation to delegitimize everything else they say. Well, you admitted Hamas committed atrocities, so how can you support them? If the guest contextualizes or refuses to give a clean yes, the host says you chose not to condemn it, and people will judge you accordingly, turning the refusal into evidence of moral bankruptcy. It is a rhetorical trap with no honest exit. And Morandi called it exactly what it is. He pointed out that he willingly condemned multiple things in that interview when Piers asked him. The bounty on his head, the power plant threats. He condemned them immediately and without hesitation because he genuinely believed they were wrong. But he is not going to condemn the French resistance against Nazi occupation. He is not going to condemn people who were ethnically cleansed from their land, pushed into an open-air prison, blockaded for decades, and then responded with violence by applying a moral standard that strips them of all context and all agency while giving the people who created those conditions a pass on every single decision that produced them. That is not equivocation. That is a principled refusal to accept a framing designed to silence rather than illuminate. And Piers ending the interview the moment Morandi started explaining what Hamas actually is and where it actually came from, rather than letting him finish the answer he had been prevented from giving, tells you everything about whose interests that condemnation trap actually serves. The who controls your show exchange is where things got genuinely fascinating and genuinely uncomfortable for Piers Morgan. Morandi implied that Piers cannot say certain things because of who keeps his show on air. Piers pushed back hard. He said he owns his own company. He asked for a name. He said, "Give me the name of who controls me." And Morandi would not give a name on air. Here is what that exchange actually reveals regardless of which side you are on. Morandi is not wrong that media ownership shapes editorial direction. That is not a conspiracy theory. That is Media Studies 101.